"Sorry, I'm in a wheelchair," she said on a blind date. The man's next move changed everything. Julian Moore had spent 37 years being ordinary. He paid his bills on time, held doors open for strangers, and never once believed that a single evening could rearrange the entire architecture of his life. But on a rainy Thursday in October, sitting at a corner table in a softly lit restaurant called Ember, with a cup of coffee growing cold in front of him, everything he thought he knew about love, courage, and what it means to truly see another person was about to be rewritten in a way he never expected. He had agreed to the blind date only because his sister Nora had begged him for 3 weeks straight. "She's incredible," Nora had promised. "Smart, funny, kind. Just meet her once." Julian had finally surrendered, mostly to silence his phone notifications. He arrived early, straightened his jacket twice, and told himself it was just coffee. Nothing more. He was not prepared for what walked through that door, or rather, what rolled through it. Her name was Elena. She had long blonde hair that fell in soft waves past her shoulders, and she wore a pale yellow dress that seemed almost too beautiful for an ordinary Thursday. She was laughing at something the hostess had said as she was guided toward his table, and that laugh, open and unguarded and completely unself-conscious, hit Julian somewhere deep in his chest before she had even reached him. Then she looked up, met his eyes, and the smile on her face flickered just slightly. Not with embarrassment, with something older and more tired than that, with the practiced brace of someone who has watched people's expressions change 100 times before. She stopped a few feet from the table, her hands folded in her lap, and she said it simply, without apology, but without pretense either. "I'm sorry, I should have said something beforehand. I'm in a wheelchair. I know that wasn't part of what Nora told you. If you want to leave, I completely understand." Her voice was steady, but her eyes told a different story. They were watching him the way people watch weather, trying to predict the storm. Julian stood up from his chair, and then, without a word, he walked around to her side of the table, pulled out the chair that had been set there, moved it aside so there was room, and said, "I saved you the better side. The view of the whole restaurant is better from here." He sat back down, picked up the menu, and asked her if she'd ever tried their mushroom risotto, because he'd heard it was worth every penny. Elena stared at him for 3 full seconds. Then she laughed, that same open, unguarded laugh from the doorway, and something in the room seemed to quietly exhale. If you believe in kindness and second chances, if you think love should never have conditions, please like this video, drop a comment below, share it with someone who needs to hear this story today, and subscribe to Enlightened Story. Stories like this one exist to remind us what we're all capable of. Now let's continue. What followed over the next 2 hours was the kind of conversation that makes you forget your food is getting cold. Elena was a landscape architect who designed accessible parks and public gardens, spaces where every person, regardless of ability, could sit beneath a tree and feel like the world had been built with them in mind. She had been in her wheelchair for 4 years following a car accident that had taken her mobility, and for a long time her belief that her life could still be full. She didn't talk about the accident with self-pity. She talked about it the way someone talks about a storm that changed the landscape, acknowledging the damage, but pointing toward what had grown back. Julian listened, not politely, not with the distant, careful attention of someone waiting for their turn to speak. He listened the way you listen when someone is saying something that matters. He asked questions about her work, about the philosophy behind accessible design, about what it felt like to create a space knowing it would be someone's first outdoor experience after years of exclusion. And Elena, who had spent 4 years watching people either overcompensate with cheerfulness or shrink away with discomfort, felt something she had nearly forgotten how to feel. She felt like herself. He told her about his own life without performing it. He was a high school history teacher who coached the debate team, who believed passionately that the most important thing you could give a young person was the confidence to believe their voice mattered. He admitted he was not good at dating, that he found small talk exhausting, and that he had almost canceled tonight 3 times. She told him she was glad he hadn't. He told her he was too. When the evening ended and they walked and rolled out into the cool October air, Julian asked if he could walk her to her car. She said she drove an adapted vehicle and was perfectly capable of getting there alone. He said he knew that, he just wasn't ready for the night to end. She looked at him for a moment, then nodded, and they moved together through the quiet parking lot without any hurry at all. The weeks that followed were not a fairy tale. They were better than that. They were real. There were moments of awkward navigation in crowded spaces, restaurants with steps and no ramps, a cinema that made Elena feel invisible. Moments where Julian's frustration at the world's thoughtlessness had to be carefully separated from his desire to fix things she hadn't asked him to fix. Elena taught him the difference between helping and hovering, between caring and controlling. Julian learned to follow her lead, not because he was passive, but because he understood that love built on assumption was not love at all. There were evenings they sat in the accessible garden Elena had designed on the edge of the city, the one with the wide smooth paths paths and the low flower beds and the benches built at every height, and Julian would grade papers while she sketched new designs. And the silence between them was the comfortable kind, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. 7 months after that rainy Thursday at Ember, Julian proposed in that garden. Not with a grand gesture, not with an audience, not with anything except honesty. He told her that she had made him want to be more deliberate about how he spent his time, who he gave his attention to, and what kind of man he was willing to work to become. He told her that loving her had made him better, and that he didn't want to stop. She said yes before he finished the sentence. If this story moved something in you, if it reminded you that real love shows up fully and without condition, please leave a comment below telling us what part touched you most. Your words matter more than you know, and every comment helps this story reach someone who might need it today. Before this story ends, we want to ask you something. Drop the word kindness in the comments right now if you believe that how someone treats you in your most vulnerable moment tells you everything you need to know about their character. Julian Moore had spent 37 years being ordinary, but on the day he moved a chair aside without making it mean anything, on the day he ordered risotto and listened like it mattered, he became exactly the kind of person the world quietly, desperately needs more of. And Elena, who had spent 4 years bracing for the storm in people's eyes, finally found someone whose gaze felt like shelter. Sometimes the most extraordinary love story begins with the simplest act: choosing to stay, choosing to see, and choosing to show up fully, completely, and without condition.